Hello people of the earth and welcome back to QuickSave TV. My name is Mike and today I plan to talk about the Yuumu Ghostblade into Bork build. Actually vice versa, Bork into Yuumu's Ghostblade on AD carries, but the patch came out and I decided why not talk about the patch and move the Yuumu Bork video to tomorrow. So I apologize for the inconvenience and without further ado let's go ahead and talk about the patch. All in all, patch is heavily Lucian centric. It's not so good. It could be a lot better, but you know, it's heavily Lucian-centric, with some changes to Kassadin, some changes to Alistar, and some other champions across the board, and a couple of item changes. Most of the changes are bug fixes, a couple of them are very interesting ones. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about them. So, we have the introduction of the jungle timers. Now it's going to be a little bit easier to monitor the buffs of the enemy. Actually, it's going to be the same, but now you don't have to write them out, which is exceptionally useful at bronze, silver, gold, and platinum level of play, because nobody there does that, except with the exception of you, if you're offended by that statement, by which basically good job, because you're doing a good work. Now you don't have to do that. It's much easier to do and monitor, and everyone can participate in invades and the contesting of Dragon and Baron. Champion changes. First and foremost, we have the change on the Ahri, which is not foremost, it's basically a trash change, but it's a push in the correct direction. Ahri now has a lower cost on her Q, Orb of Deception, and a slightly higher ability power ratio, which is okay. I don't think it's gonna be enough to push her to the proper tier level that she deserves to be in, but it's definitely a push in the correct direction, because she's not gonna mana starve as heavily. Now, next change is for the Alistar. Alistar has a couple of changes to his passive Q, W, and ultimate. The passive change is that now he is no longer deals double damage to monsters, which means that he's not going to be very good jungler anymore, and nobody uses him as a jungler anymore anyway, so it's not a big deal. So they're just afraid of him coming back as a jungler if they buff him across the board. His Q, Pulverize, and his W, which is a headbutt, all across the board cost 25 less mana at the maximum level and slightly less mana cost at all the levels before that, which is not a really big deal because on lane, Alistar will remain the same, right? It's his late game that is being adjusted, that is being buffed to the right direction. Pulverize is slightly a little bit adjusted in terms of knock-up and stun. Now it's 1 second knock-up and half a second stun, which is basically a very stupid change, but whatever, Now it's a little bit susceptible to tenacity, but not very much. And his ultimate, Unbreakable Will, now gives him damage reduction of 70% at all of these levels, instead of having it split across the board. Now his turret dives at level 6 will be terrifying, which is kind of amazing, because otherwise Alistar is a little bit shitty, let's put it this way, as a pick at the moment. Next is a change to Caitlyn. It's a small bug fix in terms of his bullets. Sometimes her bullets would register a hit before they actually reach the target, which is a little obnoxious and could potentially ignore Shield of Yasuo and Shield of Braum. Now a change to Ezreal. Now his W, Essence Flux, can affect himself, which means now that Ezreal, if he wants to elim the enemy properly, he wants to throw the W at the enemy while hitting his ally and also in onto his W so that he gets attack speed as well. Perfection, he got that. Garen. Now, Garen can use Tiamat while he's using his Judgment, which is his E, Spin to Win ability. Kassadin is a little bit nerfed. He has a higher cooldown on his W, which is the Nether Blade. It's 9 seconds instead of 6. His Force Pulse cooldown is now 1 second, and the slow is significantly higher. So overall, it's a push to the right direction of nerfing him. But I'm not particularly convinced that it's going to be enough to actually, to remove him from the top tier that he is at the moment. Next is a Kha'Zix. His Taste Their Fear, which is his Q, is buffed by 15 damage across the board at all levels, which is not a significant change, but change is good. Maybe he will get buffed in the future. Next change is for the Lucian. Lucian's there's a whole bunch of stuff. Let's just talk about it step by step, and then I'm going to give you a rundown on what basically changed. His attack range is decreased by 50 points, which is not a big deal. His base movement speed is higher, his base health is higher, base attack damage is higher. His passive now will make sure to finish the enemy. It's basically a bug fix, nothing interesting. His Q now deals 100% of its damage to minions, which is perfect. Now it's significantly easier to farm with it, but more importantly, it costs 10 less mana across the board on every every level. His E, which is Relentless Pursuit, now costs 0 mana and is slowly reduced in cooldown when he abuses his passive, Light Slinger, as in is significantly better when he does it against enemy champions. So now, when Lucian has his Relentless Pursuit on cooldown and he hits enemy champions with his Light Slinger, with both shots of the Light Slinger, he's going to make sure to reduce its cooldown. He can also do it against minions, but the effect is a little bit lower. So he can, in a perfect situation, Lucian will be able to reduce 4 cooldowns off of his Relentless Pursuit every time he abuses his passive Light Slinger against enemy champion. Which basically means that it has no cooldown now, haha. No mana cost, his E now resets his attack animation, which is fucking perfect. And its cooldown across the board is reduced. So now it's not worth it to level it up until it's worth it to level it up last. Unlike before, you had a choice, you could choose between W and E. But if you don't know, it don't matter. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. But culling does no longer reset the E's cooldown, which is completely useless. It was really a fringe situation that you would get it, so you don't really care. So all in all, despite the fact that Riot was committed to nerfing Lucian, right, what they basically did is move him into the basically Graves tier, right? I will destroy you on lane and there is nothing you can do to me. Just like Misfortune, just like Graves, just like these champions, Lucian will now use his abusive mobility in order to dominate the lane regardless of his range. A lot of the counters that were very good against Lucian due to several reasons, for instance, Draven or Corki or Varus, they are no longer going to counter him as easily because his mana costs across the board are a lot, they're a lot lower, excuse me. His cooldowns are shorter and he's just going to be such a cancer on lane that you will not be able to imagine. Everyone is going to spam Lucian, I guarantee it, you will see. Now, Nautilus passive is no longer displayed to his enemies, which is nice, you don't want to show it to them. Queen has a couple of bug fixes to her E, nothing important, it's just now that her E will properly tag the enemies when she uses it, and she will dash towards the right direction, unlike before you would have some problems with that. Now, Rengar's Savagery is no longer going to apply 2 on-hit effects occasionally, which was a bug, it's fixed, and his Bone Tooth Necklace has proper interaction with his voiceover now. Vel'Koz's Q now splits once he dies, which is completely fucking useless. I don't know why they changed that, but whatever, I guess it's kind of realistic. If you die, you lose control over your spell, and GG. Yasuo's Sweeping Blade now will properly be accounted for as a spell cast for various items and abilities, just a bug fix. And Ziggs's bug fix is his short fuse now properly benefits from his satchel charge, which is his W if I'm not mistaken. Now, this is all for the champions. As you can see, it's basically heavy on changes for Lucian, some changes for Alistar, and some changes for Kassadin. And overall, Lucian is the star of the show once again. Lucian is once again the strongest AD carry in the game at the moment, rivaled only by Kog'Maw, because Kog'Maw is just obnoxious as shit. And if you liked Lucian before, or you wanted to try him for a long time, now is the time to do that. Because the only time he was at such a power level was back when he just released, okay? Now, the item changes. The Bloodthirster now has 20% lifesteal instead of 15. And this lifesteal is now unique, so you cannot stack Bloodthirsters, which is not a big deal. You didn't do it anyway. And the shield is now a little bit lower. Now, shield also decays slower. So overall, Bloodthirster for the same cost will give you significantly better lifesteal. And in the context of Essence Reaver change, which now has 80 damage, builds from BF Sword, and costs just 100 gold less than a Bloodthirster, Bloodthirster is still the king, because, and again, it's even better now, because of the values that it provides to you, and Essence Reaver is again a little bit outside the picture, which is a little bit annoying. Now, the problem with the Essence Reaver, once again, is that its raw stats are significantly lower than the Bloodthirster stats. They have the same damage now, which is perfect. It should have been like this from the start, but Essence Reaver still gives you 10% less lifesteal, which is a big problem, and if you want to pick it up, a lot of all-ins that you're going to do, you're going to lose just because enemy will have significantly higher lifesteal, and your endless mana is not actually going to matter so much when you're dead. So it's something to think about in the future patch. I would actually be a lot excited, very excited, excuse me, if the values of lifesteal were comparable from the Bloodthirster and Essence Reaver, like 15 to 10 or like 20 to 15, but Essence Reaver gave you less other things, so it's okay, like the same damage, a little less lifesteal, and plus mana regeneration. That would be worth it, because Bloodthirster, this way or the other, also gives you a shield, which is a big deal. Now, Ardent Censer has 10 ability power more, which is not a big change, because it's still kind of garbage. It's good for what it does, but it's very late game item, and is only super effective on champions such as Nami, which makes it very problematic to use. Maybe very effective on Soraka if she ults everyone in the middle of the team fight, but whatever, you know, you get what I'm saying. Now, the Manamune builds from the pickaxe and the tear, which means that its damage is a little higher. It costs 100 gold more total, 100 more total gold, right? And it's a little higher damage. It's 25 instead of 20. Nothing serious, but it's a little bit better, because before, when you would build a tier, you would sacrifice a lot of your power early on, and it was really, really difficult to survive just by building it. Now it's not a big deal, because you build it from pickaxe, which is basically perfect. You don't care so much. And next to the Sunfire cape, the GFX of the item is improved. It looks a little bit better, and that's it, right? Exhaust is a little bit better presented now. I didn't see it yet, but whatever, that's what they say. There's more changes on Howling Abyss, changes for Twisted Tree Line, changes for champions on Twisted Tree Line and Crystal Scar, Twisted Tree Line, blah, 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 blah. Introduction of the intro bots, which are going to be immensely helpful for people who are new to League of Legends, because yeah, it's a complicated game. Okay, there's a lot of things to pay attention to, a lot of micro that you need to learn, a lot of mechanics that you need to understand, etc, etc. And it's very nice that they're working on introduction new people to it. New audio engine, which is really nice. I didn't notice any change, but I'm a deaf bear, so I'm not really sure if anything changed, but they say it is, so whatever. And additional bug fixes, which is not a really big deal, but some of these bugs were really obnoxious and now are fixed. I'm not gonna go into detail about that, because none of them are critical for the game. And the introduction of two skins, which is Mecha Atrox and Mecha Malphite. Both look unbelievably amazing, and yeah, dude, that's amazing. I'm looking forward to see them. I just don't want Mecha Malphite to ult me as an AD carry. I don't really like the way it feels, but Atrox, I don't really care. It's perfect. So, very nice, very fresh. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This is my rundown on the interesting changes on the patch notes of 4.12 for League of Legends. I intentionally ignored Twisted Fate and Crystal Scar, and apologize if you really wanted me to talk about them, right? If you want, tell me next time, I'll discuss them in the future. So, tomorrow we're talking about the Youmuu's Ghost Blade and the Borg, so come back to find out just why this build is so effective and why you can significantly improve your standing in terms of LP, positioning in your division, and even switch leagues, you know, promotions and such, just by abusing it at the moment. I thank you so much for listening, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.